So today use case is complying with RFPs, and it's one where AI can bring a lot of value, but it's not in the hype side of things. Like people usually when they see generative AI in action, they think about writing proposals or editing proposals, that more obvious ones. But complying with RFPs with different approaches, as we will see, is also a huge one, and it's obvious and it's useful, and it's a use case that is providing professionals benefits on a regular basis. So as always in these live events, I'm going to describe the use case in detail first, then give you practical insights on how you could do this yourself, depending on the use case and the approaches. And then I will show you some tools and some resources that have been already optimized for doing this. So complying with RFPs is a varied use case because you can do many different things in order to ensure compliance. And I talk with many pros because of my newsletter, Deep RFP, and LinkedIn. And this use case differs a lot depending on your particular approach to compliance. And AI can help you in different steps of the process, but it's going to depend on what you already do, and then see how AI can help you do that. So when you see what AI is able to do with text, the application to analyze RFP requirements is quite intuitive because you now have computers can read and understand documents and complex context. So you can use those as a sort of a virtual analyst to give you insights or feedback on RFPs. So those professionals that have understood the capabilities and limitations of AI when dealing with documents are benefiting a lot. So also another variation of this use case is using AI as a parsing analyst or a parsing assistant. So imagine you are already working with compliance matrices. You may want to use AI to help you with some of that, copying information and transposing information between documents, or organizing the same information in different ways, which is what we call parsing. And then also another use case in this arena of ensuring compliance is using AI as a reviewer. Sort of, I already have the RFP, have my proposal draft, and now I want someone, in this case, a virtual agent, to check my proposal against that RFP and give me feedback on how compliant is my proposal, but also how to improve, gaps to cover, etc. So again, it's a very varied use case. I want to explore today 3 of the most common ones, which are these 3 I've just described. So also the use case is quite broad. If you are already using compliance matrices, one obvious application is to use AI to do that. However, like with compliance matrix, I mean a requirement matrix, or some sort of your RFP is read into a matrix, and then you have all the requirements highlighted and maybe classified, so you can start managing your proposal from that document. The good thing about using AI for this particular use case, building compliance matrices, is that you don't need to rely on keywords anymore. So traditionally, software and what we have called in the industry RFP readers, or this idea of converting an RFP into an Excel file with all the sentences, paragraphs there, and then having highlights on those sentences that are referring to critical requirements. That traditional approach was working based on keywords and dictionary based. So it's basically software identifying if some sentence contains some words and then highlighting those. Okay, it's basically the same technology that when you are searching a PDF for terms, different words. Now with AI, what you can achieve is that you can make the models understand the document, and then you can ask whatever you want. It's not only about requirements. It can be about one type of requirement, or classifying those requirements in different ways depending on how you organize work internally. But it doesn't end there, because you can build also matrix-like analysis that focus on different things, not only requirements. So basically, what you can do is to convert this idea of converting RFPs into a matrix-like analysis, as is shown right now in the screen. So basically, you have the columns on the left are your RFP is read, like all the sentences and the page number, etc. And then you have on the right, you have the answer from the AI, and that answer is not only highlighting if that sentence contains some word, but is actually giving you insights on whatever you were analyzing the RFP for. So teams are using this to focus on compliance, of course, but also to support, for example, there being no bid processes. So if you have a list of red flags or a list of positive criteria you like to evaluate when reading RFPs, you can run one of these analyses and get a report that focuses on that. In particular, like my red flags for this RFP are this and that, or my positive points for supporting the bid case are this and that. And this helps so much time, especially when you have some red lines that, for example, you don't bid for anything that contains some standard about cybersecurity or whatever the red flag is. You don't need to read until page 128 just to find that there's a requirement targeting that thing. And so you can run this and get a preview on the red flags that the RFP may contain. And also, it's very important, very powerful to understand that this isn't relying on some keywords, but the AI is understanding the whole document and then telling you, look, this sentence in this page because it's probably one of your red flags. So much more powerful approach than what we had until 2 years ago. Then also teams are using this to build sort of niche requirement matrices. So imagine you want to, following with the cybersecurity example, imagine you want to provide an overview of the RFP to your cybersecurity team. So you can run that analysis and send the RFP together with this matrix that focus only on the cybersecurity aspects, and they just can go through the matrix and get a grasp of what needs to be done, etc. And also, it's not only about requirements about deciding bid no bid, but for example, there is one use case right now, extends use case that peers are using to analyze risks in the proposal phase and also the potential risks if you get awarded the contract. So you can sort of give your AI your criteria and your tolerance for risk and your risk management approach, and then make the AI read that RFP and give you an analysis on those areas of the RFP that could be riskier and what to do about them. And not only in the proposal phase, like deadlines and deliverables you need to ensure and submission instructions, but also if you get awarded the contract, the risk of the implementation phase, reading the scope of the RFP and the clauses, legal clauses, etc. So those are some examples of what you can do with this type of tools once you understand the capabilities and also the limitations. Finally, I wanted to touch on a different practice that we are seeing as well, is using AI as a virtual compliance reviewer, which I introduced earlier. So in this case, instead of working with full RFPs, proposal professionals are using AI as a virtual reviewer for compliance. In this case, they focus on particular sets of requirements or particular pieces of the RFP to check how a particular section of the proposal or a few pages of the proposal comply with that set. So imagine you have already developed your quality assurance approach for an RFP, and you have the set of requirements in that RFP that talk about how to ensure quality during the contract. You can now have an AI to read basically your RFP quality requirements and your response to that and give you a review as a color reviewer would do, a real color reviewer would do. And so peers are using this technology for this particular use case a lot. So before actually, I'm going to review in detail the type of key inputs you need to provide and also share some bonus industry insights. But before that, let me clarify that it's very important to know that this is a field in discovery. So nobody has this figured out. And with this, I mean this whole field of AI in proposals and generative AI in bidding and proposals. So your ideal use case may be different. And that's why I always say that the good starting point where you should start is to analyze your bidding process, then understand what your bottlenecks are, then understand what AI is capable of and what are the limitations, and then see if those capabilities match your bottlenecks in some way. So it's probably that you manage compliance in a different way and you can use AI differently. But these practices are the most common right now in the industry, at least from what I'm seeing, based on all the calls I have with deep RFP clients and also as in LinkedIn and other communities online and as my practice as a proposal manager. So the best approach is to experiment, understand what AI does and what it cannot do, and then figuring out what works for your particular case in your particular scenario. So, and to help you with that, it's important to have this mindset, like realize that now you have a 24/7 reader or 24/7 reviewer. So what would you do if you have that resource? What do you do? And probably you're going to have more ideas on how to use AI to solve these your particular problems. So now, getting specific about the key inputs you need to provide for this use case to work well. As with almost any use case actually in AI in proposals, strategic management of inputs is key because it's very easy to overwhelm AI with too many inputs and too long context or whatever. So in this case, this particular case is not as critical as when you are trying to develop responses, but still you need to be careful on what you are providing the AI and how to structure the request. So of course, as a first key input is going to be the RFP or the RFP requirement set you want to analyze compliance for. Then it's going to be the second input is going to be your criteria, because whether you are doing compliance matrices, you need to provide the definition of what you understand by a requirement, or if you want to provide some categories to classify the requirements, you need to provide that. Whether you are using this AI for bid no bid analysis, you need to provide what's your criteria for that, what are your red flags, what are your positive points for bidding for some contracts. And also, if you're talking about risk or other scenarios, you need to provide your context, your criteria. And then if you are analyzing your proposal against the RFP for compliance, of course, you're going to need to provide your draft response. So as you can see, these inputs are very common sense, but it's important to have this in mind that if you are going to ask for something about compliance to an AI system, let's try to focus as much as possible the inputs for that particular request. Don't try to provide like everything you have, like your past whole content library or whatever, if you are trying just to do compliance or complex matrices, etc. Then also very important is to keep in mind the limitations of AI. In this case, the main limitation that applies to this, we have talked about this in the past, like the several limitations that AI has. But in this particular case, the one that affects us more is the cap output length. So basically, you cannot generate more than 2 to 3 pages of current content in one request. So whatever you ask the AI, any AI system to do, is the response is going to be contained in that 1, 2, 3 pages range. So since current AI systems cannot generate more than 2 to 3 pages at once in one request, you need to adjust your expectations to this limit. Because imagine you're trying to build a compliance matrix for an RFP. You want the full RFP to be contained in that compliance matrix. Otherwise, what's the point? And so you're going to need to, for that particular use case, you're going to need some custom software development that does that, is ready for you, and then you can run AI against that. Because if you're trying to do this with some open tool like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, even if you upload the whole RFP and ask for a matrix, it's going to cap in that 2 to 3 pages range. So you're going to need to work like 2 pages at a time from the RFP, and that's impractical, and it makes no sense if you have a long RFP or a complex RFP. And also you have the problem with the verbatim reproduction of the RFP, which sometimes these systems hallucinate, and so you need to be extra careful that those requirements are being transposed in a verbatim literal way. So this is, of course, is not something I recommend, like trying to do this manually if you are focused on this matrix-like analysis. But if you do, please take into account that you're going to need to be limited and working with this limit of 2 to 3 pages, so not ideal. For the other use case, however, the one where you are using AI as a reviewer for your proposals against some part of the RFP, this isn't much of a problem, because in those cases, you're going to be like comparing sections to a scope of work or to requirements. And in those cases, you really don't care if the analysis of the AI about your response is 2 pages only, because that's going to contain all the insights you need to improve that proposal. So it's not like the limitation here is where you're trying to reproduce the RFP verbatim, because of course, that for long RFPs is not practical to do this 2 or 3 pages at a time. But for analysis on this idea of having the AI play the role of a reviewer, this limitation it shouldn't be a problem. Now, before I share how to do yourself, like the overview on how you can use different models and different tools to do this yourself, let me share a bonus industry insight, because I've been in some debates, and I've seen actually lately some podcasts and some presentations on different approaches to manage compliance in proposals. So I just wanted to address this when working with RFPs. So there is the comprehensive way of doing compliance, often through a matrix-like analysis. So this idea of reading your RFP and then going line by line, reading that RFP, classifying those requirements, identifying what matters, and then tagging and assigning those requirements to people or copying those requirements to somewhere else to move your proposal forward. This is by default best practice in the industry when you are dealing with complex RFPs. And even if not technically complex, long RFPs, you usually go this route. So if you are doing this type of work, AI is very good at doing this, both parsing information and reading information. So check the tools or check the models that you can customize for yourself, because AI is working great if you are doing this type of approach to compliance, where you are approaching compliance very comprehensively. Now, there is another way, more relaxed, that focuses on building sort of a template, skeleton or annotated outline, where you have the different sections of the proposals. You copy there your RFP requirements, maybe some screenshots about the RFP, relevant parts, and you put notes there so the team can work on this master document. And then the proposal manager, ensures compliance working within those sections. Like you have the RFP requirements on the top, and then you have the draft from your technical expert at the bottom, and you check visually that those two align, and then work on your master document. Now, artificial intelligence, at least the current systems we have, are not very good at this type of work. So if this is your way of doing things, probably you're not going to find very appealing use cases, at least for the part of generating matrices, of course. And so basically, you're not going to find any good AI tool that works with templates and extracting information and putting that in the right section with the right screenshots, with the right notes for your team. So maybe in the future, is just a couple of months away. But right now, if that's your way of doing compliance, it's probably not. You're not going to find much useful AI for that. If this is your case, what I recommend is to focus on the use case of using AI as a reviewer for feedback on compliance, instead of focusing on managing the documents or your templates. So now about how to do it yourself. As with any use case with AI in proposals, you can always do it yourself. Okay, with whatever AI power tool you have access to, whether it's ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, the one from Anthropic or Google, whatever you're using, maybe some open source models, you can do this stuff yourself. Seriously, but the thing is, it's a lot of work. So it doesn't mean it's easy. It can be done. So in this case, so as you can see, these steps, I've shared these steps in the past. It's always sort of the same framework, but I've added one in particular here in the first line, because if you want to work with matrix-like analysis, you're gonna need to develop some way of threading your APIs internally, and of course not manually, like automatically with some software script, some software tool. So maybe you need to involve your IT team for that, and it's a tricky problem, especially with RFPs and PDFs, because procurement people are very creative with formatting and all stuff in the RFPs. So this is probably one of the hardest steps if you're gonna go that route, is to get the threading right. But anyhow, that would be the first step. And this only applies if you're trying to build compliance matrices or this type of matrix-like analysis. If you want to use AI as a reviewer, you don't need to worry about this step. So for the rest of the use case, like the rest of the steps are common to all the use cases. So you need to select the right AI model, because not all models work the same. So maybe if you are working with requirements, you need one model that works best for that. Maybe you are looking for risk analysis, you find another model is best. Then you're gonna need to gather relevant data, fine-tune the model if required. If most of the time this isn't the best approach, but sometimes you need to fine-tune some models. If that happens, you're gonna need for sure involve your IT team. But maybe in your case, the performance you get with a model out of the box is good enough for you, so you don't need to fine-tune anything. Then you're gonna need to provide the right examples, and this is key. So whether you are classifying requirements or identifying risks or doing some different way of compliance, you need to provide the AI with the right examples, and it's also tricky to find the right set of examples to get the maximum performance. Then you're gonna need to design the right prompts, like how to talk to that particular AI model on what you're trying to do, and iterate a lot, because everything here, since AI is not deterministic, it's more like working with a virtual person or virtual mind. You need to iterate a lot and find your way through trial and error. So that takes time, and it's not easy. And then after all that, you need to make sure the system is ready. You can run it when you want. You are not capped in limits about usage and other limitations that some of these tools, out-of-the-box tools, come with. And then you start benefiting. So what I'm trying to transmit here is that even if you can just go and do this yourself, maybe it's not the right investment of your time, because it's an awful lot of work, and you need to think if that's the right move in your case. It sounds like a lot of work, because it is a lot of work, and I know this because I've been there building a kit over 20 AI tools for proposals, including one that analyzes RFPs. This idea of, here's my RFP in PDF, get me a matrix-like analysis that focuses on whatever you want. So the good news is that you have options to skip to the last step and start benefiting from day one. And today I wanted to show you a couple of those options that are within the Deep RFP toolkit. So this is part of the kit. It depends on the plan you are on with the subscription, etc. But this is part of the kit we have, and it's what we call the AI RFP analyzer. And this is a tool that does exactly what you described. This idea of converting, you basically upload your RFP, select one type of analysis, can be compliance, can be disqualification, like risk factor analysis, the one I was telling you about. These are like the by default, but then teams can customize their own analysis here. So you could have your red flag analysis, or your no bid support analysis, or your own risk or requirement analysis, etc. And so the user experience is very simple. It's like you upload your RFP, and then you run the tool, get one of these reports in Excel format, and that's it. So this is the tool that generates this type of documents. So it's already built. You can start using it today. So before considering developing your own shredder and your own AI model to analyze your requirements, etc., you can just get one tool that does this for you. So this is for the first use case that we have discussed about building compliance matrices and building matrix-like analysis for your RFPs. As you can see in this example, we are combining technical requirements with red flags for standards in this particular case, or legal requirements if you want to pass maybe your legal team some analysis of the potential conflicting points or whatever. So this is but again, since the user experience for this one is very simple, you don't need to do much than just uploading your RFP and running the analysis you want to run. I'm not going to spend more time here. And I wanted to show you the other one also, the one that where you use AI as a virtual reviewer for your compliance or your response. So this, what you are seeing now in the screen, is the kit or part of the kit for Deep RFP. We have tools for writing, we have tools for editing and reviewing. We have a section that is focused on using AI as a technical expert. We have proposal agents. We have a lot of stuff, like, more than 20 tools. But today, what we're gonna demo is the one that is about editing and reviewing. So let me first generate just a quick response for the demo purposes. So I'm gonna move directly to the color reviewer, which is the tool that we use for compliance and also for responsiveness. So these are two types of analysis. You can use AI for, you can use Deep RFP for giving you feedback on compliance and also giving you feedback on how compelling your proposal is or how well selling your proposal is. But in today's use case, we're gonna focus on compliance. So here you copy the input that is coming from the RFP. In this case, is the requirement. Remember that, as I explained earlier, the idea here is not to work with full documents. That's the other tool for, like, the one that generates these matrix-like reports. But here, what we're going to work is with different sections of the RFP and the response to those sections. And then we're going to get a much more relevant feedback on compliance and how to improve, etc. So we copy here the RFP requirement. Now we have our proposal draft. Okay, so remember, we have selected the compliance review, which is the use case we're covering today. Then the requirement, that is this part, is coming from the RFP, and then we provide the draft, the proposal draft, or the section that we have already developed. And then we click submit, wait a few seconds, and what we're gonna get is an analysis on how compliant our response is with that requirement, with that set of requirements. So this is very helpful to, for example, to provide feedback or to your technical experts or to your writers, but also, you can play with this. The key idea is you have now a virtual 24/7, always available reviewer that can work on compliance. So how do you use that? Maybe you use it to support your writing, but also another use case we are finding very interesting is to provide these tools to your technical experts so they can check the drafts against the RFP compliance before sending you those versions. So you get much more advanced versions if you do that. But of course, your technical experts need to have the bandwidth to support with this idea. Anyhow, the potential is so huge that the most important thing that anyone in proposal can do today is to figure out how to use this technology for your particular use case, like for whatever you are doing today. So here we have an analysis of basically, as you can see, the length is going to be like maybe 2 pages, 1.5, something like that. But in this particular case, we don't care because this is just an analysis of feedback on how to improve. We are not trying to build a compliance matrix here. And you're going to get the feedback about why this is compliant or not, some suggestions for improvement, and also some categorization, like easy ways to see if you are compliant or not. As you can see, most of the response is compliant because, of course, we have just generated this with Deep RFP, and Deep RFP does a pretty good job covering this out of the box. But we have a partly compliant here. So in this case, a potential step would be try to improve this particular thing. Basically, what it's telling you is, like, you are telling that you're going to comply with this requirement, but you are not providing enough details about how you're going to do that. So it's a partly compliant because if you have experience in the industry, you know that you need to show how you're going to do things, not only tell that you will do these things. So you can use different tools within the kit to improve this, or maybe you want just to adjust your inputs manually. But there are many ways to solve this. The idea is, like, you have this color reviewer that can help you with feedback almost in real time about your compliance and your status compliance. And you can use this, of course. We're not going to cover all the use cases, but in this particular color review, you can do the same for our responsiveness. And in this case, what you're going to get is an analysis focused on not how compliant you are, but how well written or how compelling, how selling is your proposal, how responsive is your proposal for that RP. So different type of analysis, and you're gonna get suggestions on how to improve things, focused on impact of the proposal, on better selling. Even if you are compliant, how you could improve your response to better selling. So yeah, those are the use cases I wanted to cover today. So now, if you have questions, now is the time you put those in the comments, and I will answer them live.